back. Penny, trying to be in the video.
All right, guys. Hi. We are still, well, I am still in Florida. Paul doesn't know I am moving into the mother-in-law suite. So I'm going to be here a couple more months.
We wouldn't even know you were here.
Ohio. No, so we are here and making a couple of videos today. And actually one question we just were chatting about what is on our minds and what kind of video do we feel just is that we should make today. And we both kind of went to the mental state of fitness, or like something that's more psychological and not like macros and
yeah, I think a lot of people associate fitness with the body, but
right.
So much of it is up here.
Fitness is so much more than just, you know, tracking your macros and working out. It all starts in the mind. And I think since I've shared my story about just struggling with some eating issues in the past, I get a lot of questions. And for some reason this week I've gotten quite a few questions on binging and eating disorders and how did you break that cycle? Because I've been very open about my struggles in the past with having some different eating disorders and or disordered eating, you could call it, and struggling with binging and struggling with restricting. So kind of like, how do you break that cycle? And Paul and I were discussing this a little bit before we decided to film, and it is really different for every single person. So depending on who asked me that question, it's like, well, it's gonna be different for every single person, but I think the same thing that applies to everyone is that it all starts in the mind. So it all starts at some deeper issue. So every single person deals with issues in their lives, and we all have things that we maybe resort to if we're struggling internally. And for me, how that manifested itself was in dealing with eating issues. And so my number one recommendation, if you're struggling with binging, if you're struggling with an eating disorder, is to talk to a counselor. There's obviously going to be many different things that you can do in order to address an eating issue that you're having. For me, it was a kind of faceted thing that over years, it was a lot of different factors that played into just not having those issues anymore, and overcoming that struggle. But the number one thing would be addressing your mind, and it's not just the food, it's something deeper. So struggles that we have, they manifest themselves in different ways. Some people turn to alcohol, some people turn to drugs, some people turn to food. And so for myself, I noticed that when I was struggling with my lack of self-confidence, not knowing where my life was going, this was in college and at the end of high school, and just dealing with, I was injured in high school, my whole identity was in track, and then I got injured and I had that taken away from me, and then I started dealing with eating issues, and it was just like this kind of downhill spiral that I was on. But now that I look back at it, it wasn't the food that was the issue, it was the deep down, like what was I dealing with? And it was definitely... The food was
solving a pain for you?
Yeah, like I was trying to turn to food to numb that in whatever way that was. So for a lot of, I've noticed too with a lot of women, and I think men deal with it too, and it's just not as addressed, not talked about it quite as much. But so many women just reach out to me or have sent me messages and said, I binge, and it's like this numbing. I mean, it's like a binge, you feel terrible afterwards, and it's like, but during it, it's almost like a drug.
Yeah.
And so I was turning to, you know, not drugs, not alcohol, anything like that. I was turning to food in order to like numb this sort of like unhappiness that I was feeling. And so the number one thing that you should do is address like what is the underlying issue. And I think for a lot of people too, some of my friends that I've talked to that have dealt with this in the past, it was like, yeah, it was like an abandonment issue, or it was my insecurity with a relationship that led me to, you know, to food or to control. If they feel a lack of control in their life, then they might restrict their food and, you know, turn to exercise as like, you know, doing hours of cardio a day and hours of weightlifting as this control thing, because they feel a lack of control in their job or a lack of control in their life, or they feel rejected, and so they feel like this will be like the way, you know, this is something that they turn to. But you first, I think, have to find peace within yourself before you can move forward in your fitness, because fitness should be
Not a Band-Aid.
Right.
So as someone who deals with a lot of competitors, I have found that there are times people use a competition date as an excuse to treat themselves poorly. Like, I am going to lose this 40 pounds and I'm going to get on stage and I'm going to do whatever it takes. And not that competition is necessarily a healthy thing all the time. Like, we get to unhealthy places as far as like body fat and mindset just based on our choices. But to approach competition as a Band-Aid for things that are going on in your life, and you end up, you know, restricting, getting calories so low, cardio so high that the binge sessions might not only be mental, they might also be physiological. Like, you start to have cravings and overeating and lack of satiety.
It will only get worse because your physical, your hunger signals are worse. You're putting yourself through, you know, more cardio, more weight training, lower calories, and then it's going to actually magnify your issues and not make them better. And I've seen the same thing. A lot of times people think, okay, well, if I just follow this diet, if I just pick this show, if I just do this event, if I just pick this powerlifting meet, you know, and then diet down to a weight class.
They make willpower their #1 asset. And willpower is fatiguing.
So you can't just pick a date, pick a show, pick a diet, think flexible dieting is going to solve all your issues. I mean, it can help. So flexible dieting is definitely a strategy that I implemented in my own journey, because before I was doing a restrictive like meal plan, and that just was making things worse because I felt so restricted. So then the binge was kind of this
once you're off the diet, stay off the diet.
And it was just this like rebellion that I was feeling against the diet.
But as we've seen as well, flexible dieting, which basically, for those that aren't familiar, flexible dieting is just the idea of you can exchange any food for any food, and that carbs, fats, and proteins are the most important thing. But flexible dieting can also become an issue. People become rigid with their flexibility, with their flexible dieting approach. They refuse to eat out and do things like that. So, you know, you might just be changing one obsession for another. So the most important thing is that she and I are not qualified therapists. So we're just giving you our take on what I've seen as a coach and what she's seen through her personal experiences as a coach. But someone that we both highly respect, that's a competitor, that has a PhD, that knows what she's talking about, is Dr. Corey Probst. 100%. Corey at thedietdoc.com. You can always email her. She's my go-to resource. When I have a client and I start to notice some trends, hey coach, I'm having these problems with binging and restricting, I say, please email Corey.
One of my clients has worked with her too.
And she's I always get a fantastic email a few weeks later, thank you for referring me to Corey. So I think the most important thing is recognizing that it is an issue, admitting it to yourself, and understanding like you're not a bad person. You didn't do anything wrong.
And it is so common. And also too, I think it's recognizing that it's something deeper than just the food. So if you can go to a deeper level and talk to a therapist, talk to someone who can talk about your problems, talk about maybe some issues that are years in the past that you don't even realize are you know, harboring these addictions or these habits that you just can't seem to break. And what is that deeper issue? Because you need to get your mind in a good place. I'd say my contest prep this past year was the most successful contest prep and enjoyable contest prep, because it all started like in my mental state. I was in the best place, just how I approach things, and the least obsessive, I would say, with...
And you had been through a few probably, so you knew what to expect. So when you had a bad day, it wasn't like the end of the world. And it's just about kind of keeping the big picture perspective too, but getting your mind right first should be #1 priority. So talking to a therapist, talking to someone that can help you get to those deeper issues and address that first, so then you can implement those changes in your life. The first thing I usually ask my clients is, okay, are you noticing a trend, or what is triggering the event? Because sometimes, you know, if you don't want to go get professional help, you can actually kind of go, okay, what's triggering it? Okay, someone said something to me at work. And I thought in my head, I can't wait to go eat that thing, you know. So if you start to notice something that's triggering you, then maybe you can go, okay, I've been triggered. Instead of going for the food, I'm gonna go take a 10-minute walk, clear my head, get things right. You know, I also suggest to my clients that tend to be overeaters or binge eaters, don't graze. Get your meal, put it on your plate, and eat what's in front of you. You know, I've had the issue before of myself where, like, I'll weigh out my food, but I'll leave the bag nearby, and you eat your food and you just kind of keep grabbing. So sometimes if you just give yourself like some controls, those can be helpful.
Strategies.
Just start paying attention. Kind of step out and look back and go, what's going on? Maybe even a diary. Take notes. I don't know if you ever did anything like that.
Personally, I didn't, but I definitely knew the situations that would like make me, you know, kind of triggered. And one of those was trying to follow a too restrictive of a plan. And a lot of times that can make you feel deprived and feel just ravenous too, and then that only magnifies the issues. So it's going to be different for everyone. The solution's going to be different, but it needs to start in changes that you're making in your behaviors and changes you're making in your mind that will, because everything starts up here, and what you're thinking will then lead to your behaviors. So what are you addressing in your mind first, and not just a diet plan that someone's sending to you or a meal plan, because that's never going to fix you. A workout plan is never going to like fix the issue. It needs to be addressed internally first.
No, and punishing yourself by doing lots of cardio or not eating for the next 24 hours. These are only going to make the situation worse in the long run. So, all right.
I think that's great. Awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we will be making another video maybe
tomorrow.
Monday.
Yeah, Monday tomorrow. We'll get some more content out before she's back in the cold weather.
Bye, guys.